everyone, it's Alice, and today we are going to do a little spring TBR. I don't know about you, but this winter was rough over here. I don't know what it was, because usually I really enjoy winter and I love staying inside and getting cozy and all of that, but usually I'll get over it like when we're 5 months in and it's still snowing. I'm like, okay, I'm done with it. But I feel like I got over it really quickly this winter. Maybe it was because the weather was so crazy here. Like, there were a lot of extremes in the weather. I don't really know. But now we are nearing sort of brighter days and I'm very excited about it. I'd say we're in the early days of spring here. That might be a little bit optimistic, but I feel like we're getting there. And that, of course, makes me excited to read all over again, just like it does every time the seasons shift. So I've made a little TBR and we're gonna take a look at it. Firstly, we have Bookshops and Bonedust by Travis Baldree, because no matter the season, I always want all of the cozy vibes, and if this is anything like Legends and Lattes, this is gonna be perfect. This is the prequel to that, and it follows the same main character who is an orc, and in this one, I'm guessing she's still like in her adventurous life, and I think she suffers an injury, and that means that she has to like recover in this sleepy beach town. And in this town there is a bookshop and she spends a lot of time there. It sounds lovely and I think I'm gonna love it. Secondly, I really want to get to What the River Knows by Isabel Ibanez. This is historical fiction fantasy and it follows this girl who has grown up in Buenos Aires, and she's in like the upper class, I think, and she has everything she could want, except her life isn't that great because her parents are like globetrotters and they keep leaving her behind. So even though she has a really good life, she seems quite lonely. Then while her parents are out traveling, they tragically die and she inherits this massive fortune, but also like a mysterious guardian who's like an archaeologist. And I think her father leaves behind this magical ring with his daughter, and that has something to do with her going over to Egypt, and she's like, I don't know, she has this magical ring, and also she's trying to figure out what happened to her parents, and I don't know. It says it's like The Mummy meets Death on the Nile, which honestly, it doesn't get better than that for me. And I have really high hopes for this. Like, I just love these kinds of adventure books that have archaeology elements and it's set in Egypt. It just sounds perfect. Taking a bit of a turn with this next one, we have Boy Parts by Eliza Clarke. And this is like a contemporary horror novel where the main character like obsessively takes explicit photos of random guys, which is already like, what is going on? And then she starts like rising up in the art scene in London, and this triggers a sort of like self-destructive thing. I don't really know. It sounds super weird, but I've also been told to just go into this blind, like that's the best way to go into it. So I'm not gonna look too much into it. I'm just gonna give it a go, and I'm a little nervous but also a little excited. Then on to something a little bit different again. We have Vera Wong's Unsolicited Advice for Murders by Sutanto, and I don't know what it is, but I just want all of the cozy mysteries with like elderly busybodies. I don't know why, but I just love it in these kinds of books. Maybe it's because it's 100% gonna be my future. Like, that's what I'm gonna become. I'm already too curious for my own good now, so you can imagine what I'm gonna be like when I'm like 70. Anyways, this follows a 60-year-old self-proclaimed tea expert who runs her own tea shop, and then one day she wakes up and finds a dead guy in her tea shop. And she decides that she's gonna solve the murder because she doesn't trust the police to do it correctly. So off she goes to catch a killer, and that sounds like a lot of fun. Then we have a translated book. It's The Dallergut Dream Department Store by Mi Lee. And this just sounds like such a trip. Like, in part because of the cover. Like, the cover looks insane, but it also sounds like a book that's gonna take me for such a ride. It says it's set in a town in our collective subconscious where there is a department store where you can go and buy dreams when you sleep. and we're following a new hire who starts working in this place. And it also mentions a flamboyant store owner and like someone who makes special dreams and someone who works in like a mystery department. It sounds really trippy, but also very creative, and I'm just very intrigued by this. Then we have some historical fiction books. We have The Invisible Hour by Alice Hoffman, and this is going to be the first book by this author that I'm going to read that is not in the Practical Magic series, and I'm really excited about it because there is something with the way that this author writes that just gets me. Like, she is an exquisite storyteller, and honestly, I will read anything she writes. This follows a woman who seems to have grown up in some sort of cult, which I'm already intrigued by, and she has gotten to a point in her life where she doesn't see a way forward. She doesn't know how she's going to survive, but then somehow she discovers the book The Scarlet Letter, and that saves her somehow. I don't know how, and I'm intrigued by that because I actually really dislike The Scarlet Letter. Like, when I read it, I absolutely hated it, but it'll be interesting to see how this relates to the main character. I think there's some overlap between the stories, maybe, and that's how it saves her. And yeah, I'm sure the writing is going to be amazing. The characters are going to be amazing. Like, the way this author writes is just so good. Another historical fiction book I'd like to get to is The Impossible Girl by Lydia Kang. And I read Opium and Absinthe by this author last year, I think, and I really enjoyed it. And I just got this because I would like to read some more. This one is set in Manhattan in 1850, and we're following the daughter of a wealthy socialite and a nameless immigrant, but she's born out of wedlock. But because of her parents, she can sort of blend into both wealthy society but also in the slums. And I think she's some sort of a resurrectionist or something. And she works with like procuring bodies for anatomists. And the weirder the body, the more she gets paid. Which is obviously illegal, but then also people are coming after her because I think she's born with 2 hearts or something. And people want her body to, like, I don't know, dissect or something. I have no idea, but it sounds like a lot is going on and that it's going to be very interesting. Then we have a middle grade book with the most amazing cover. This is by Ash, Oak, and Thorn by Melissa Harrison. And just look at this. Like, you can't find a more spring appropriate book cover. Like, it's so beautiful. This follows 3 ancient beings who used to be like the guardians of the wild or something, and they wake up from their winter hibernation, and I think they wake up to find their home, like this big ash tree, has been destroyed, and because of that they go on this adventure to find more of their kind that maybe they can stay with. I don't really know. It sounds very sweet and lovely and delightful, and just this cover, like, if the inside is anything like this cover, it's gonna be so cute. Then at the end here, I actually have 2 romance books because I just feel like spring is the perfect time to read romance, and I just want to read something fun and a little silly, so I have these 2. The first one is Fake Dates and Mooncakes by Sher, and I'm just expecting this to be super cute, and I love this cover, and I'm also really into this dog on the cover. I'm not going into this for the dog, although maybe I am a little bit actually. Anyways, this follows a man who enters this mooncake baking contest in honor of his mom, but also to bring attention to his aunt's like struggling restaurant or something. And I don't know how, but somehow he gets distracted by this other very charming man, and they end up fake dating. I think they end up going to a wedding together. I don't know, and I don't quite know if I'm into the fake dating thing. I've read a couple of books with it in it where I didn't really like it, but I feel like there's a little bit of potential in it. So I'm gonna try this and see how it goes. I hope the story is as cute as the cover. Lastly, we have Raiders of the Lost Heart by Joe Segura. And like, what even is this? I don't know, but it just looked fun when I found it, and I want to give it a go. And it does have adventure, and it mentions archaeologists, so maybe I'll end up absolutely loving it. It follows 2 rival archaeologists who go on this secret expedition, like Aztec expedition, and one of them has always dreamed of leading that kind of expedition because I think she's looking for like the remains of a long lost relative who was like an Aztec guardian or warrior or something. I don't really know. And the other is also on this expedition and his life is in shambles. Why? I don't know, but we're gonna find out. And they end up having to work together. So I feel like this has, I think they're rivals. So it has this like rivals to lovers thing. I don't know. I'm just gonna go into this expecting to have a good time. Hopefully it will be. But I also feel like maybe I'm going into it thinking that I'm gonna get all of this adventure and that's not what the book is. But I'm gonna give it a go. Maybe I'll get super invested in it. Who knows? That was the last book though. A little bit of a weird mix, but then again, I always feel like my TBRs kind of are, so it makes sense. Now, I'd love to know what books you are planning on reading this spring. Is there anything in particular? Tell me all about your TBR. And as always, thank you very much for hanging out with me today, and I will see you soon. Bye!